Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Ethos Online. Again, this is a place where we can be, belong, and become the very best version of ourselves. And so often we will use the teachings of Jesus. Because again, whether you've deconstructed and you see them differently or you find them passionately the same through the lens you have, whatever it is, we're so glad you're here, and we believe these teachings are so helpful, especially to present day life. And so before we begin, as always, please look at the description below. We would love for you to support what we're doing through financial help. We'd love to have you subscribe to the YouTube channel, click the bell, all of it. All those details, they're right down there below. So please check that out. As we move through this, I want to remind you again that we are a part of a thriving community of people. And twice a month, we come together and we do something called Ethos Living Rooms. And so if you want to be a part of this online experience via Zoom, please email me at tonywerfel@gmail.com and I will connect you to the link. And so again, we have such awesome conversations. I would love for you to join us. Anyways, today we continue with our series, A New Way to Be Human. Again, this is basically the teachings of Jesus on the Sermon on the Mount. And so again, if you are a Jewish person and you are reading this in the first century, because again, to understand this piece, you have to go to the beginning. You have to go to when it was written, who the audience was, and for what purpose. And so again, Jesus, a Jewish rabbi, right? He's sharing this beautiful, these beautiful explanations of what it means to be human. And he does so by going up on top of a mountain where he expands on the teachings of Torah. So again, any good Jew is going to make the connection. He's going to understand Jesus is the next Moses, right? Jesus is this messianic character, person who has essentially come to share this new news for them of how to be more human, how to interact together, how to create community, kingdom of heaven here and now. And so again, when they see Jesus, they make all those connections to all of these different prophetic voices of the past. So Moses. Again, the Sermon on the Mount, we like to use this one often, is a deeper critique into the heart of the law. It reclaims the beauty of living life in harmony. Shalom, right? Nothing missing, nothing broken. Beautiful. And of course, this is all written, these gospel messages, they are written after the temple's destroyed. And so really key moment here. And I think many people, they forget this when they're reading the Gospels. The Gospels are written to a group of people who lost everything. Again, they watched as family members were killed, murdered, right there in the streets. Anyone who wasn't able to get to the mountains was killed. Rome was brutal in the way they dealt with these Jewish people who had taken back Jerusalem. And now Jerusalem is sieged again by the Romans. They have destroyed their temple, and they think at this moment, man, maybe Judaism is gone forever. If our temple is gone, maybe our whole system's gone. And if that's the case, then where's the divine, right? Where's this kingdom of heaven? All of the prophetic voices told us. What happens now? And so out of the ashes comes this beautiful picture. And again, it comes in Moses 2.0. Jesus comes in and he says, look, the temple, the kingdom of heaven, this new reality you've all been waiting for, it's actually already here. It's already here among you, within you. That's the message of Jesus. The message of Jesus is not that God is now finally happy because the killing of his son put him in a good mood. That was never the point of the story. That was never the gospel message. The gospel message was, look, the kingdom of heaven, the new reality, it happens here. And once it happens here, everywhere you go, you share the kingdom of heaven. You share the good news. You share what it looks like to be fully human. That was the teaching of Jesus. And again, that's why Jesus always references himself, not Son of God, Son of Man. Beautiful, right? Yeah. And so again, the whole center of all of this message is a new way to be human. And it's really an old message, but it's wrapped in a new kind of picture. It's wrapped in Jesus. Jesus is what the new way to be human looks like. And so the whole message, of course, if you've been following us, it starts with a bunch of happy are you if you do this. And again, that's kind of the start of the Beatitudes. And so we've moved through the happy are you if you do this. And now we've moved into Matthew chapter 6, 24 through 34. And so it's a longer one today. I'm actually going to spend more time on the second part of the slide because the first one, it kind of introduces everything. The second slide, these last couple 5 or 6 verses, they kind of sum up the whole concept of this basically 10-part verse. So here you go. And you can read along with me. That'd be great. No one is able to serve 2 masters. For either he shall hate the one and love the other, or else he shall cleave to the one and despise the other. Isn't that fun to use the word cleave there? Any of those King James Version people? There you go. I use cleave, right? I just didn't use any thous yet. So you are not able to serve Elohim and Mammon. Because of this, I say to you, do not worry about your life, what you shall eat or drink, or about your body, what you shall put in it. Is not life more than the food, and the body more than the clothing? Look at the birds of heaven, for they neither sow nor reap nor gather into storehouses, yet your heavenly Father does feed them. Are you not worth more than they? And which of you by worrying is able to add 1 cubit to his lifespan? So why do you worry about clothing? Note well the lilies of the field, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin. I say to you that even, this is Solomon, Shlomo, in all his esteem was not dressed like one of these. Yeah, and then it goes on. If God so clothes the grass of the field, which exists today, and tomorrow is thrown into a furnace, how much more you, O you of little belief? Do not worry then, saying, what shall we eat? What shall we drink? What shall we wear? All of these things the Gentiles seek for. Your heavenly Father knows what you need at all of these. But seek first the reign of God and his righteousness, and all these matters shall be added to you. Do not then worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow shall have its own worries. Each day has enough evil for itself. That was a doozy, wasn't it? That was a lot of verbiage. That was a lot. I want you to notice something right here on this slide, though. Notice this. For all of these are what the Gentiles seek. For a Jewish person, Gentiles were people in our culture today. We might say they're not quite woke yet, right? They're people who haven't quite seen the fullness of the divine. They haven't quite seen that this thing happens here. And once you become woke, right, to this new reality of living, things shift and change. And so for them, when they use the word Gentile, that's what they're referring to. Those kind of people who are not us, right? They're them. They don't quite see the full picture yet. That's how Jews viewed Gentiles. Yeah. Agree or disagree with that view, that's actually how they did it. Secondly, notice this. The idea here, and your heavenly Father knows within you, but seek first the reign of God and his righteousness. Seek first the kingdom of heaven. Seek first the kind of values that bring wholeness. That's the idea. This is the movement Jesus is actually bringing his people to in this section. And so if you look in the very beginning, no one is able to serve 2 masters, for either he shall hate one, love the other. We've already connected this, right? Last week we talked about this. What Jesus is doing here is really brilliant. Again, when the writers are writing this, they're not actually writing in chapters, are they? Yeah. There are no chapters, there are no verses. It was written one long piece. And so please understand, when we're cutting things off, we're going by chapters, verses. That's not actually how the writing was. And so this is a bit of a transition. And so he moves from the idea of serving 2 masters into more of like a monologue about life, about what's important in life. What do we do in the middle of pain and fear and anxiety? Right? This could not be a more relevant message for right now, April 2020. Yeah, this is a message I think we could all use. What do we do in the middle of fear, anxiety? Everyone around us seems to be just losing it. What do we do? How do we respond? This is the message of Jesus. And so from the get-go, Bob Marley, right? Almost sounds like Bob Marley. Don't worry about a thing. Every little thing is going to be all right. That's kind of the feeling we get from this, right? Secondly, this idea, some people have said, well, yeah, we shouldn't care about anything, right? Nothing should touch us. I should just have no cares in the world. That's not actually the point either of what Jesus is saying, right? There's something bigger here going on. Don't care about anything, no. Care deeply about things, but choose the things you care deeply about, right? That's the direction we're heading here. How do we deal with anxiety and fear? How much do we care about the things going on around us? This is where we're going in this message. This is what Jesus is going to touch on. And so think about this. In our culture right now, we are more anxious than ever. Yeah, we have all of this stuff at our fingertips. We're connected more than ever, and yet we're disconnected more than we've ever been. We feel more disconnected, and yet we have all these different tools to connect us. And we have all these things that are supposed to make life easier, yet we're unhappier. Check this out. This slide I think is really interesting. According to the WHO, right? We keep hearing about the WHO, World Health Organization. 1 in 13 people globally experience, and again, it's serious anxiety. 1 in 13 people are feeling a serious sense of anxiety. Anxiety disorders are the most common mental illness in the U.S. They affect 40 million Americans age 18 and up. 40 million people. Anxiety is a very real issue right now. It's only getting worse, it appears. 18.1% of the population every day says, I am so anxious today. It's an everyday thing for some people. Almost 70% of people with mental disorders remain untreated in developing countries. Again, we don't know what to do with this. We don't know how to treat this kind of disorder where we're just constantly in anxious mode. With almost 1 million people taking their lives each year, this is affecting America in really huge, profound ways. Anxiety. What do we do with the anxiety? That is the question. And again, Jesus is talking to a group of people who are extremely anxious. They are so fearful right now. What do we do? Where do we go? Where is our hope? What do we do with all the pain, all the brokenness, all the fear? That's where they're going. I think Rabbi Mordecai Kaplan, he kind of sets us off in a good space when we're considering these words of Jesus, especially this section. So I want to read this to you because I think it's going to kind of move us into this direction we're going, the direction Jesus leads us. So watch this. What is life anyway? It does not consist in the money we have or the clothing we wear or the food we eat. Again, he's paraphrasing, isn't he? Life is best enjoyed by focusing on personal relationships and taking interest in others. Beautiful, right? This is what the Torah is all about. Also, it's about living our lives for relationships. Yeah, again, Judaism was all about community, relationships. It was all about learning to engage with each other and the world. It was all about engagement. It wasn't disengagement, engagement. The Torah commandments can be broken into two categories, that of loving Elohim and that of loving your neighbor. Thus, one's mindset as to what he worries about tells much about the man. Think about that. Think about this question right now. What are you most worried about? And what does that worry tell you about yourself? Think about that one for just a second. What are you most worried about right now? And what does it tell you about yourself? Is it an odd worry? Is it one that when you really begin to dissect it is kind of silly, or maybe it's crazy? Maybe you're going to worst case scenario. Maybe it is deeply something that you should be worried about. What is the worry? And what does it say about you? Fascinating question. So here we go. James, I think, also says it really in an interesting way. He says, what do you do not know about tomorrow? What is your life like? For you are a puff of smoke that appears for a short time and then vanishes. Again, basically, he's quoting Solomon. It's here and it's gone. What are you? This life is so short. It's putting priority, right? Saying, what do we put in our priorities? And are you going to spend your life worrying? Because this life is so short. It's here and it's gone. And so what Jesus is going to do is he shifts perspective. He shifts the perspective on us. He says, look, you can focus on those things, or you can choose to see it a different way. And so watch this. Because of this, because of the worry, the anxiety, the fear, the direction we typically go, he says this, don't worry about your life, what you shall eat or drink, or about your body, what you shall put on. Is not life more than the food, and the body more than the clothing? Think about that for just a sec. Is life more than that stuff that we get so focused on? Jesus questions our focus here, which I think is fantastic. What are you focusing on, right? What if we stopped focusing? Check this out. What if we said, I'm going to stop focusing on all the consuming things, the things I feel like I have to have? What if you stopped for a minute and said, man, most of my worries, they're really based on like owning stuff or having enough stuff. If you're worried about having enough toilet paper and you're stocked full of it, that's an issue, right? What if instead, again, Jesus shifts the perspective. What if instead of focusing on consuming, always needing to have, again, I think that's like 90% of our worry, not having enough. What if instead of that being our focus, we allowed ourselves to be consumed by something bigger? Not fear, not anxiety, but what if we allowed ourselves to be fully consumed by something else? And here's what he says to do. He says, look at the birds of heaven, for they neither sow nor reap nor gather into storehouses, yet your heavenly Father does feed them. Isn't that beautiful? It's a shift of perspective. It's saying, look, you could focus on what you don't have, or you could say, man, I have so much. And all around me is a reminder of that. Every time you go on a walk in nature, stop, look. It's all around us. This message, it's so easy to be consumed by that instead. Jesus shifts our perspective. We have this little area in our brain, this prefrontal area. And really this frontal area, this area basically is all about self. Anytime there's like an emergency, fear, whatever, this area of the brain is going to say, whoa, wait. Me, right? Take care of me. And sometimes that prefrontal area will allow itself to get really riled up. Anyone with me? And so what Jesus is saying here is really interesting in brain science, because what I love about this is once we stop and we allow our perspective to shift, we've actually found that the brain actually creates new connections to other places inside of that gray matter we have. Those other spaces in the brain, it will make new connections. And so when you have a certain issue come up, fear, trauma, anxiety begins to take hold, instead of immediately responding the way we typically have, immediately freaking out, immediately going to worst case scenario, if we stop and we train ourselves to say, wait, what's really going on here? Is it really as bad as I think it is? Maybe I'm going to imagine something different. If you learn to shift and change perspective, it actually creates new pathways to different areas of the brain so you can make a positive shift rather than immediately go down the rabbit hole of panic. Cool? Yeah, I thought so too. Here's a quote from Kelly McGonigal. She wrote Willpower of Instinct. She says this, being in nature, again, what Jesus points out here, get into nature, right? Being in nature or even viewing scenes of nature reduces, watch this, when we are in nature, it reduces anger, fear, and stress, and increases pleasant feelings. Like how many of us need that right now, right? Some of us, we're stuck quarantining, right? Get out. Go on a walk if you can. Get out, sit on your porch, allow some sun to hit in, see some birds, whatever. When you do this, when you make it a priority, it actually causes the fear, the anxiety, the anger, the stress. It shifts. And instead you get pleasant feelings. It goes on. Exposure to nature not only makes you feel better emotionally, it contributes to your physical well-being, reduces blood pressure, heart rate, muscle tension, and the production of stress hormones. These are all really, really good things. And it happens once you step out. When you can step out into nature, shift your perspective. It does wonders to your body, your brain, and Jesus would claim your soul. It's beautiful. And it continues. Jesus says, "And which of you, by worrying, is able to add 1 cubit of his lifespan?" Think about that. Does worrying, does living in fear and anxiety, is that helping you at all? Is that saving you pain and brokenness in the future? I used to live in the space where I thought, if I could think of the worst case scenario, if I could go there in my mind, then when something bad did happen, right, then I wouldn't be let down. I wouldn't let myself think good things in the future and then be let down. However, here's the thing. When you think worst case scenario, when you allow worry to just build up and fear and anxiety, here's the thing. It actually decreases your lifespan. Here's a study done in Purdue University. They followed 1,600 men ages 43 to 91. They followed them for 12 years. And this is really fascinating to me. 12 years, they examined the anxious personalities, how they fared over time, compared to the ones who were less anxious. And so at the end of the study, 50% of the men with high or increasing anxiety, I messed it up. At the end of the study, only 50% of the men with high or increasing anxiety were alive, compared to 75 to 85% of the other group who dealt with anxiety and fear better. Isn't that fascinating? Again, if you are fearful, living in anxiety, it drops your lifespan. It takes years off of your life. So again, this message Jesus shares, mind, body, soul, it's all there. It's all relevant right now. Couldn't be more relevant in the time we're living. Another writer, he says this, what if we chose to imagine a different outcome? Think about that. You can imagine it differently. He says this, "You should not be surprised at whatever you see or hear. If you are ready to accept things as they are, you will receive them as old friends." Again, when you think of the present, when you think of the future even, are your thoughts, are they scattered with fear and anxiety and all that? Or are you looking forward and saying, man, I can't wait. And what an opportunity right now to still be alive, to breathe. If that's your perspective, if your imagination is instead not going to worst case scenario, but best, it actually improves your health, your perspective, and your actions will follow. This is all really, really good. And it's all deeply embedded in the message of Jesus. So why do you worry about clothing? Note well the lilies of the field, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin. I say to you, even Solomon in all his esteem was not dressed like one of these. I like this. Worry, bottom line, worry is a response. The people during Jesus' time, they had a choice. They could either live in anxiety, they could let fear completely cripple them. They could say, man, we imagine that the world's only getting worse. We imagine that there is no life left in Judaism. We imagine that our children will not be alive to see another tomorrow. We think because the temple's gone, Judaism's dead. They could go worst case scenario, imagine the very worst possible outcome. Jesus says, no. Worry is a response. And so because it's a response, you can choose a different response. You can shift your perspective. You can become aware and consumed of the goodness, the kingdom of heaven all around you. And when you do that, your actions will cause something positive in the world. That to me is beautiful, so relevant right here, right now. If I could sum up the words of Jesus in this 10 verse section, very long, I would say this: worry is a response. and you can choose a different response. You don't have to live in fear, anxiety, and worry anymore. That's why some of the writers say it died with Jesus, right? We don't have to live in fear and anxiety, and we don't have to do that anymore. We can choose a different response. Just like Jesus over and over again says, you don't have to respond to hatred and violence with more hatred and more violence. You can respond with love. And I would argue same thing going on here. You can respond to fear and anxiety differently. Yeah, good, really good, right? So how do we do it? Again, easiest thing in the world to tell someone, but how do we actually live this thing out? First step, I think always. First step is always stop and breathe. When fear and anxiety hits, what if you trained your brain to push your body to do this? Just stop and breathe for a second. Stop, breathe, and find some calm. Most of us, when something bad happens, we have knee-jerk reactions, right? Lizard brain kicks in, and we just go crazy. But what if the immediate response was just a second of, I think that right there would keep us out of 90% of the problems we have. Just stopping and breathing. Another helpful thing after that is this. After you stop, after you breathe, what if you said, I'm going to stop now and just observe for a minute. I'm going to become aware of what's going on around me. I'm going to find a new reference point. Because when that just happened, my reference point was fear, it was anxiety, and it was terrifying. What if my reference point shifted? What if I instead of going down that rabbit hole, I allowed a moment where a bird kind of woke me up? I heard a bird singing. I felt the breeze hit my face. And I turned and I looked, and my perspective changed. What if you allowed yourself to do that in that moment? Just a second of it. Just a shift, a point of reference. You just shift it. Third one, after you do that, what if you imagined it differently? Your outcome. What if you said, you know what? I'm not going to go to worst case scenario right now. I'm going to imagine the best possible outcome from this. Even though it looks potentially bleak, even though this thing feels really scary, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole of this and this and this and this. I'm going to say, you know what? Something good's going to come of it. It always does. God, the universe, always seems to find a way to balance it out. And I believe in that balance. In this moment, I'm not going to freak out. I'm going to imagine something good, and I'm going to allow my body and my mind, everything to follow. And I know that sounds a little mystical, but often we'll find the Hebrew writers over and over again will say this: stop, calm, things always worked out in the past, and they will again. Don't freak out. Don't lose control. Don't lose heart. Don't lose faith, right? Lastly, I'll remove the negative. I'm learning to do this in so many ways. I'm learning sometimes I got to just shut this TV off. Sometimes I just got to shut media out for a bit. Sometimes I need to take a step away from some toxic relationships. Sometimes I need to remove the negativity, the things that are causing me fear and anxiety. Sometimes I just have to give that some distance. Sometimes I need to uninstall, right? Doing those things, I would argue, are super helpful and can help us navigate through anxiety and fear, especially right now. So again, to sum up Jesus and this beautiful new way to be human message is this: worry is a response, and you can respond differently. Thanks so much for joining us. As always, please consider donating to ethos-church.org/donate. There you can donate monthly. And again, this is tax deductible, so please consider supporting us, walking with us in this journey, sharing this with everyone you know that could potentially hear some good news. And we think it's pretty good news. Also, our Ethos living rooms, please consider joining us twice a month, especially right now when you're not able to go to different social events. People are just dying to connect. And so twice a month, we get together and we have conversations. You won't hear me or others preaching at you. I think we have enough of that. I think we have plenty of pastors and speakers talking to people, right? I would argue we don't need more people talking to us. We need conversations. We need to feel heard and loved and supported and sometimes challenged. We need good conversation and dialogue, and that's what Ethos Living Rooms is. You will never see anyone preaching anything. You'll just hear a lot of interesting conversations and interesting takeaways on certain passages and stories, narratives, poems, all of it. That's where we go together. And it is so life-giving. We have many, many people now joining from all over the country. And we'd love for you to join us too. So email me, tonywerfel@gmail.com, and I will send you the link. And as always, hit that subscribe button and that little bell, and it'll notify you whenever there's a new video out. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. We love you. Have a great day, and we'll see you next week.